Aloha, namaste. This is Radha home. Is everybody gearing up for our second eclipse in the pair? We have our full moon lunar eclipse happening in Ashwini this Saturday, the 28th of October. It won't be visible here in Hawaii or in the United States, but it will be visible in Europe and Asia, Africa, and most of South America, Australia as well. And it's going to be a penumbral eclipse. So the eclipsing node, Rahu, the north node, is not going to be in exact alignment with our moon and our sun. So we'll only have a little bit of the earth shadow cast on the moon. But this is a big eclipse because it is the final one in this pair, this axis that we've been navigating since March of 2022. So we've been reckoning with self and others. Aries is the sign of our self-interest, and where we are going. And Libra is the sign of others and our relationships and our harmonizing. And our solar eclipse 2 weeks ago really brought that up to the surface. And we are still in that portal while we try to open up the new karma on ourselves. So whatever we need to work on in our relations with others is going to greatly affect our capacity to really create new identities and understand ourselves in deeper and better ways. The particular star of Ashwini is the first of all the nakshatras, and it is ruled by the Ashwini Kumar, who are the twin horsemen. They're born of Surya and his wife Surya and his wife Sanjna. Surya is the sun, and Sanjna felt that her husband was a little hot and she needed a vacation. So she took off and brought her sister Chaya, which means shadow, into her place so that she could take her vacation. When she came back, she found that her husband and Chaya had two children together. One was Saturn, our planet of commitment and hard work and time and boundaries and fear. And she'd also bore Yama, the god of death, who's the deity of another star in Aries called Bharani, which Jupiter is in right now. And so Sanjana was not pleased. She was not happy about this. She changed herself into a mare and she fled to Earth. And then Surya realized what he did and changed himself into a stallion and went after her. And the two of them met up on Earth and made love and bore these two twin horsemen who became the physicians of the gods. They are the gods of Ayurveda. And so this particular place in the sky is where we are starting something new and setting off in a direction. But we also have to be aware and cautious of not necessarily having all the information. And the fact that there's two, right? There's two horses is indicative of the fact that we need to be in harmony in order to go in any one direction, right? If we're fighting ourselves or our partner or whatever it is we're trying to do is not aligned, then we're going to go in different directions and we're not going to end up anywhere, right? And if we're too impulsive and we don't take the time necessary to, really collect all the details and work on all the details and set strong foundations, then no matter how much energy and enthusiasm we have, we're likely to fail in what we start. In this particular dynamic, we have Saturn, so Chaya's other son, or the Surya's illegitimate son, giving a one-way gaze to this lunar eclipse. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now that I'm getting all complicated. We have Saturn giving a one-way three-house gaze to our moon in pretty close degrees. And this is still retrograde Saturn, but he's going direct on the 3rd of November. So it's really more like a stationing Saturn that is giving us a lot of stuckness. We've been probably reviewing what we've been committed to over the last 5 months because Saturn's retrograde period is very long. We've probably maybe even gone back on commitments that we've made. it's hard to make forward motion sometimes when Saturn's retrograde, especially in whatever area of your life Saturn's in, whatever area of your life Aquarius is, where he's sitting, because we're just not sure we're making the right choice. We feel fear, we feel anxiety, and it's pent up within us rather than giving us more pressure to do what we need to do. So this one-way gaze onto our moon might give us some pause, might give us some stuck energy where we're trying to move forward quickly. Jupiter, as I mentioned, is in Bharani, Yama's sign. This is the portal of life and death itself. It's symbolized by the yoni, the birth portal, and has the god of death as its deity. So there's this relationship between life and death, and also this awareness around what we create and the boundaries we need to have around what we create. Yama really has to do with control, containment of what we're making or what we're doing, or if you think of it in the terms of pranayama, control of our breath. So our capacity to make cautious choices, have control over what we're actually creating and bringing forth into this world, and to start something and to really have that impetus and that enthusiasm and that harmony between the elements that we need in order to move forward are all going to be at play right now. The thing with Rahu, the North Node, is that it's very excitable. There's a lot of anxious energy and a lot of like desire to move in whatever direction Rahu's in. And since, again, it's been here for a year and a half, this area of your life that Aries is has really been kind of lit up for you over the last year and a half. You've been really, maybe even obsessing over this area. But Rahu is new karma. It's the part of us that wants to start something, but we don't have the information. We don't have the wisdom. We don't have the skill. So there's a lot of stops and starts. It exaggerates wherever it is, and it really splays that energy out in many directions. So it's particularly challenging in the fire signs like Aries, because we're spraying out with this air-like energy, fire, right? And that can get fiery, that can catch fire, and that can burn. And there's not a lot of assimilation where Rahu is. We don't learn from our mistakes very well. We tend to just keep making them. And it takes time to mellow with this energy. But because it's a transit and we're all sort of hanging out in the same area, we don't have the time that we have with the axis, the nodal axis that's in our natal chart, where we're working with that for years and years and years. And in midlife, we might actually start to really learn some things. So this can be chaotic on a global scale, as we've seen, on more smaller social scales within our own communities, and also individually and personally, particularly because Aries is so much about the self and so much about our own selfish desire. And really that part where we think of like just going forward and doing something without really paying attention to how it affects anyone else, or how it's going to, what the consequences or ramifications of our actions are going to be. So this impulsivity has gotten us perhaps in some trouble over the last year and a half. And this is kind of the final hurrah on this stage. We had our solar eclipse 2 weeks ago in Libra, but the moon was actually, and the sun together and the new moon were still in Virgo. They were at the very end of Virgo at the time. And now we can see everything sort of piled into Libra. We have the sun here at 10:57. We have Mercury at 16:30, and we have Mars at 17:11 degrees. So both Mercury and Mars are combust. They're close to the sun. And Mars and Mercury are very close. So Mercury has sort of a double problem. It's sandwiched between the sun, where any of the planets that are close to the sun, it's called combust. And it indicates like a shorter fuse with that energy. So when Mercury is close to the sun, we often don't feel heard. And we might try to be amicable about that, particularly since Mercury is in Libra and we want to get along with everybody. But we also might feel a lot of agitation around that and anxiety around that, and maybe make a joke or do something else to kind of deflect that energy. But because he's so close to Mars, closer to Mars than the sun for sure, we also might snap on a dime. Mars is not particularly healthy in Libra, where we're trying to connect and harmonize. And Mars is here like showing us our individuation, having black and white views, so not really very good at compromise, and really indicates like fighting in relational matters. As again, we can kind of see in these bigger picture, in the social picture, but also likely in our own little worlds as well. So getting angry on a dime, saying harsh words, or fighting as opposed to trying to come to agreement can come up with these three here. The sun is also debilitated in Libra. And you'll note that all these planets are in Libra, right? I know it's Scorpio season in the Western, depiction of astrology, but it's not, right? These are where the planets actually are. If you were to take a telescope to the sky, or you're to use one of your apps on your phone, this is where the alignment would be. There aren't actually any planets in Scorpio. And it's really important to understand, because the sort of dark and stormy, depiction of Scorpio is often really a debilitated sun in Libra. It's giving away your power. So that idea that we're just, dark and stormy is not really giving clarity to what's actually going on. The sun really enjoys being in Scorpio, actually. We can light up our shadows, we can really see in the depths of things. But the sun in Libra is challenged because we're not allowing ourselves to get that direct download from source, like this is the way to go, this is the leadership I need in my life, and maybe anybody else that we lead, or if we are at the head of any business or job or anything that we're the head of. But even if you're not the head of anything in your life, you're the head of yourself, right? The sun is the part of you that is giving that is the king of every other part of you. It is your connection to source. It's your consciousness. And if your consciousness is wrapped up in, does everybody else like me? Am I making anyone mad? Is this going to be, then that's going to produce poor leadership for the rest of you. And since Mars is involved also, and he's not as disciplined here, we don't have as much courage and discipline here. Again, we're giving it away to other people, but then we're getting mad at them about it. We're getting angry at them about it. And while Mercury normally fares quite well, not so much when he's really close to Mars and hemmed between the sun and Mars. And K2 is still involved, even though very early degrees and moving into Virgo at this point, K2 is still bringing that harsh, very cutting and skillful quality. So we might be even particularly more harsh with our words. And it's old stories. It's old stories that are coming up. So this, across the way from our exaggerated will and the way we're seeing things in this very black and white, which is it's a Mars thing, right? But it's Aries rules. Aries is ruled by Mars. So we're seeing this sort of exaggerated, this is right, this is wrong, particularly because Jupiter's here. And Jupiter has to do with our beliefs. And our beliefs are also retrograde. So they're also old beliefs, old beliefs on what is right and what is wrong. And we have to ask ourselves, are we tired of telling the same stories? Right? Are we tired of believing the same old things? Are we ready for new karma? Are we ready for a new story? And so long as we hold on to old stories about others, we are holding on to old stories about ourselves. It's going to be virtually impossible to really set forth a new step with your own identity if you're clinging to everybody else's old identity, right? People need to have the breathing room to change and to evolve. And if we don't let others do that, we also don't let ourselves do that. And much of what holds us back is fear, right? Social fear, since Saturn's in Aquarius. And so this is the time to break free of that fear and to really allow ourselves to move beyond the limitations that we've imposed upon ourselves. And that maybe society has imposed upon us, but we accept what society offers us. We make that choice every day. And we can also make different choices, but it is not easy. It is definitely not easy. This period in time, you can just see, even if you know nothing about astrology, just seeing these pileups of planets and then seeing that the only two things that are sort of free of this dynamic are Saturn and Venus. And Venus is in Leo. She's actually in exchange of the signs with the sun, which helps us a lot in terms of giving away our power, because Venus is, not wanting to give away power in Leo. When Venus is in Leo, we're all sort of divas and wanting to sit on the throne in our relationships and expecting a lot of other people. There can be great affection and loyalty and fun, but there's also a lot of, grandstanding and this quality of wanting to be the one in charge in our relations with other people. So this does help us not give away our power as much, as well as the sun being in Libra can help mitigate Venus's position in Leo by helping us compromise a little more in our positions of power, being like, yes, I want to sit on the throne. Oh, yes, there are other people here too. And if they don't get along with me or they don't agree with my leadership won't really work too well. So there's some help here that we have. But we also have Saturn right across from Venus as well, giving us this sort of relational fear, like fear that the others aren't going to follow us and that we're not going to be able to pull off whatever it is we're trying to pull off. And that fear being stuck, being in the stationed state that it's in, can just sit in this area in our chest and not go anywhere, right? We don't act on things when we're retrograde. And it's apparent retrograde motion. It comes from how slow the planet's moving in relationship to the Earth, but it makes it difficult for us to make new commitments and humble ourselves in new ways and step forward into new time. And it keeps us in this place where we don't know how to do something new because we're stuck. So this is one of the things we're reckoning with right now. And it is likely to be a pretty fiery time, not just on the eclipse itself, but leading up to it, because every day Mercury is getting closer to Mars. And so our words, which is a big part of how we relation with others, are becoming more and more quick to set off. So this is an important moment in time to really be excited about the things you feel enthusiastic about, and also take breaths, take time to listen to other people, what they have to say. Allow yourself to, sit back in a situation and observe before moving forward and just making a choice, a rash decision. And notice the projections. When Rahu is on the moon, there's a lot of confusion and delusion, and we might see things very different than how they are, whether it's for better or for worse. So we might be seeing like, oh my God, this is what's happening right now, and it's so horrible, and be reactive. We also might see things in a way where we're really imagining this fantastical possibility of something and find out later that it was an illusion. So big choices, big decisions, this is not the moment for that, right? This is something we want to wait to in November, when Saturn starts to move forward again, and when the nodes move November 23rd into the Virgo Pisces axis, we'll have a lot of energy out of this Aries Libra axis and away from Jupiter particularly. Jupiter doesn't actually go direct until the end of the year, so we're still going to have some old beliefs we're working with for some time here, but it'll be easier to work through when we don't have so much energy in this stuck place, and also just in this axis, right? So one question we can ask ourselves right now is just what did we learn in the solar eclipse and over the last year and a half about the way that we relate to other people? It can't all be everyone else's fault, right? There's something that happens in our relationships that we show up with again and again and again. And it likely has to do with the way in which we compromise with people. Do we give too much and then regret it later? Do we not give at all? Are we so strong on our I'm right and it's my way or the highway? For each of us, it's going to be different. And this is why I do reports that really break it down for each sign. It's going to be a different area of our life, and we're going to have different tendencies based on our natal chart. So if you are not already a member of my Cosmically Aligned Patreon group, you can sign up for free for a 7-day trial and see what area of your life you've been working on in this axis. I have the breakdown for the solar eclipse from 2 weeks ago. I have the breakdown for the lunar eclipse that I did, that I put out on Monday. And I also have a whole video really diving in deep for each of the signs and showing you what you've been learning, what lessons have been up for you. Because for, a Capricorn rising, this has been a lot about career and home, for Aries and Libra people, well, it's really much about self and other, and probably a little painful for Libra people, and maybe Aries people a little overconfident. So this is an important time to really understand what the lesson was that you're learning. What's the karma that you are closing, and what is the karma you're opening up, and how good are you doing it? How aligned are you? And this is one of the reasons I really love Vedic astrology, because it helps us be aligned with what is true, as opposed to sort of, nebulous ideas of what we might be attached to, the signs and what we think we are based on a sun sign or something like that is really ineffective in understanding our karma and understanding the choices we're making and understanding what's happening to us. So you can check that out at patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology. I should have a link below. And also, this is the last few days for my 22% off on all readings, Eclipse special. So if you go to radhahomeastrology.com, you can book a reading. You don't need to have the reading before October 31st, but you do need to book it before then. I hope you all have a beautiful and blessed lunar eclipse, full moon. If you celebrated Navratri, I hope that was a really prayerful time for you, and that we are all able to celebrate and be victorious in this moment, because it has been hard in many ways, but it's also very liberating in many ways if we allow it to be. Namaste.